Hey there, SMITE fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of cores. Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
Welcome back here onto the desk, but this time for another day of SPL action, our second day of the week, brought to you by our title sponsor, Alienware. Make sure to check out smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get yourselves some sweet discount codes on those Aurora Ryzen 10 Edition desktops, or you can pick yourself up a sweet 25-inch gaming monitor at 240 Hz. Not just 4 times the processing power and cores, but that's also 4 times the hertz that I've ever had on a monitor for it. So make sure to check all that out. Once again, smitegame.com/Alienware. But it's not just me on the desk here. I'm joined by Gormizer onto this one. And this is the start of a legendary run here. Well, it's already been the start of a legendary run, but this is probably the biggest matchup for the Bolts to continue that streak. They're taking on Camelot Kings for our first set of the day.
The continuation, right? The
there you
difficulty that is, hey, you guys have gone undefeated and like you're real close to breaking a record. Can you keep it going kind of deal? And that is a wonderful threat to have. I think it's a little more pressure. Like I always talk about it, like if there's that concern when you're number one to stay number one and how hard you're going to go up there. That's not really there this time. Although with the Kings, like they're right on your heels. Maybe there's a little bit of pressure from that. But you're 8-0. You don't want to tarnish that.
It's such a big thing. You go 4-0, losing one. Not a huge deal, but you're at 8 now in a row, and you're only 2 sets away from tying the all-time record, and that was set 6 seasons ago. 6 seasons that title
It's a long
has
time.
still been holding on there for the boys at NRG. As you saw in the standings, it's not our only match today. We do have the Scarabs taking on the Titans afterwards onto that one. And looking at the standings here, as you see, the big pretty 8-0, the goose egg in the loss column there for the Olympus Bolts. The Camelot Kings are going to try and shut that one down today. And one of the big priorities that we've seen, not just from one team, but from both teams, and you guys highlight on the waiting room, these two supports are going to be where a lot of that pick and ban phase is prioritized around.
Works out really, really well for us that they're playing each other, right? Like, so not only was it a good conversation in my mind, it translates really well to this set because these guys have been target banned out a lot of it, so I'm not going to be surprised if we see a lot of bans for both teams. Your Yamojas, your Ymirs, your what have you. I guess Fafnir Terras are going to be up there as well. Very, very consolidated, more than likely banned. And they're also the playmakers for this. I mean, we see a lot come from the jungle from both of these teams with a lot of setup, where their mid laners are phenomenal, the hunters, the solo laners, all of that. But there's so much foundation from the supports on both squads that it's going to be very, very fun to watch how they play.
This might be one of the few teams that, or few matchups that we sit here and go, okay, everybody else just gets to play whatever, but the supports, these are the ones that we're going to see digging probably really far down into the god pools and probably also have the most top pick priority of any other player, any other role amongst these teams, just specifically in this matchup because of genetics and because of Awesome Jake. And we're going to really want to talk a lot about these two because they've kind of defined the support meta, and they're one of the few groups of players that have so many targeted bans towards them. The Emoja, just because of how good Umoja is. The Terra has become such a prominent one for Genetics as well, but Genetics has shown that he's willing to go so far deep into the pool because of all the bans, and he still does so well onto it, like the Cerberus.
I was going to say, top picks, he's played 14 games this year as Ymir. He's 10-4 on that pick. Jeez. So, yeah, you can imagine why it gets banned. Walls like that are reasons that gets taken out. Right behind that is the Terra, just behind that is Fafnir, and as you had highlighted, the Emoja. But it's one of those problems where, you know, you're talking now 4 supports deep. If you spend even 3 bans on that, you have to open up the eyes to Morgan. You have to open, or to Morgan and Morgan, since it's Veneno on the other side. You have to start talking about Tiamat, things like that. And so that was kind of the discussion for Waiting Room, which is, if you know Genetics is going to play out of his mind bonkers anyway, do you invest so heavily? I think the Ymir is something that is maybe necessary at this point to ban, because
good walls.
10 wins versus 4 losses in the entire year. That's pretty solid. But if you can really start to limit him even slightly while giving Jake an edge, I think that's something to focus out here for the Bolts. Otherwise, I mean, Genetics has been just nonstop playmaker at showcasing, like, even though there were some circumstances that kind of limited his play last year, how phenomenal he is as a support is just not just SPL caliber. They deserve number 2, if not higher, with the way things have been going.
Well, we've got the man himself, Genetics, on standby for an interview for the Camelot Kings here. And Genetics, this is a big one, mostly just because it's basically support day for you guys. You're going into the undefeated Bolts. They're sitting at 8-0. What kind of prep work have you done to prepare for this matchup?
You know, the usual. It's not really it's a normal game for us. It's important for the Bolts, obviously, for their record, but for us, it's just a normal league game. But, you know, watching back previous games is always really helpful, prepping for the teams, which I think everyone does in the league.
Well, we highlighted a lot onto the Waiting Room. We highlighted a lot here. You and Jake are probably the 2 most prioritized players to ban on these 2 teams for the support role. How far down into the God pool do you think that you guys might have to dig in order to actually get a pick today?
Yeah, I mean, me and Jake both get banned out quite a lot, and we also share quite a lot of gods. I mean, we're both really good Ymir players. So who knows, it might go down to 6th, 7th gods, depending how bans go. Which most likely it will. So we'll see. There might be something spicy whipped out. It might have to be.
I mean, how good does it feel just knowing that you and Jake and even Wrong, you kind of throwing into the conversation, how good does it feel that you guys have kind of defined this support meta as it stands right now?
It's definitely better being one of the leaders. I mean, being top 4 is always better than last year when I was down at the bottom. Feels a lot nicer. Feels good to get a bit of respect and some respect bans. It just makes you feel a bit better as a player. Obviously, it sucks sometimes when you get overbanned and then you can't play some fun gods. But usually it feels a lot better than being what happened last year.
Well, thank you for your time, Genetics. Good luck in your matchup today against the Bolts.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Well, you heard it there. It's not real fun when you're it's kind of fun in the sense of, dude, guys, they really think I'm that good. Look how much they're banning for me. But then you're also kind of thinking, oh, guys, they're really putting a lot of focus. Like, do I really have to go this far down into the pool? But I think his phrase at the very beginning of the interview kind of ties it all together. This is just a normal game for us.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to tackle it, right? Like, it's one of those things you can't get in your head, especially, like, it's still technically regular season. Yes, the Bolts are undefeated. Yes, you're making a push if you win this as the Kings, potentially getting yourselves into that first seed spot and that first place spot for the phase. But if you let that overwhelm you, like, nerves can start to trickle up, and like we've seen what that can do during LANs, this is no time to worry about it. You're just tackling it. It's the same old SPL day. You're going in. You're doing your job. And they've been so consistent that I don't think they have much need to be too worried.
Well, on to the flip side, we talked a lot about Genetics, but we've still got Awesome Jake to also try and tackle into this one, and that's another tall task to kind of go into and a lot to dissect with there because just like Genetics, Jake also has quite a few guys that are banned away from him. Maybe not to the extent that Genetics has onto it. I mean, was I think 6 picks and bans that were targeted towards Genetics in one of his matchups there. Not quite the same onto it, but Jake still has a very wide range on the gods. And
yes,
as you said, a lot of similar picks there with Genetics.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So in terms of like games played, Fafnir is like one of the highest. Same thing, Yamoja are actually tied there for Jake as most. But then Sobek, your Ymir, your Ares, all things that you're just as likely to see Genetics play as you're likely to see Jake play. Although the Ares, I think, it felt a little more unique to the Bolts for a little while. The thing is, and this is what's interesting, you're going to notice, like you said, a lot of highlights that look very similar because it's a support making plays on similar gods, as we had highlighted with Genetics. But you ban away the Ymir, let's say both of these teams have a phenomenal Ymir, so you really don't want to deal with that. And you ban away Yamoja because you know that's going to be problematic. Fafnir and Sobek are actually a little weaker overall in terms of their win percent, a lot more closer to that 50-50 coin flip. Fafnir a little under and Sobek a little over. So Jake has, I want to say the same versatility that Genetics has, but maybe not quite the wide net of success that Genetics has had so far. Granted, I say that and immediately look up and see him freeze 3 people at once, but I think it goes to showcase if you can get Jake comfortable, it is going to be a big threat. And the problem is that over time, from the beginning of Season 7 to now, his limits of comfort have done nothing but grown. I mean, absolutely immensely to the point where we were, again, memeing him a little bit at the very beginning of Season 7 because it's this guy who likes to play support Neath sometimes in ranked games. He pulled out support tier because why not? And now it's like, oh no, if you don't ban like 2 or 3 gods specifically away from Jake, you might just lose the game because of Jake. And that's ignoring the rest of the factor that the Bolts have had, and the same thing for the Kings. So this is going to be, I think, a very interesting tackle for both of these teams. Both the coaches have probably been pulling their hair out as to how to deal with this because there's just too much to ban on the other side.
And I think you made a good highlight onto that one. Season 7, the announcement comes through. Awesome Jake into the SPL, and everybody all over social media, even amongst some of the bigger crowds, they go, "Awesome Jake, the ranked tier support player. He's coming into the okay, sure, why not?" And now he's one of the most prioritized support players in the meta, trying to make sure that you can get picks for him and make sure that you can get picks away from him as well. So it's crazy to see this evolution in just a year and a half. Seems like it's so long for most people, but in the SPL, that's such a short amount of time for some players. It's a year and a half. So seeing this evolution of this player, and even throwing Genetics into there as well, he hasn't had much time into the SPL, and he's already made a huge name for himself. But picks and bans for game number 1 already, and this is what everybody is ready to go into on this one. This is where all eyes are focused in. Gore, what's the over-under on support bans before they come through? Over-under on 3.
Wait, on the top 3 or all 10?
On the top, let's go with the top 6 total. I'm going to say total? 3 over-under.
I'm feeling over.
Over?
I'm going to, on.
On?
On's not an option, but I'm going with on because
fine.
I can't imagine letting Tiamat through right now. And if you're going to let Tiamat through, then things are going to get real wonky real fast for everybody involved.
Well, we do see Yamoja banned away, and it's going to be Odin and Osiris. So far, 2 solo laners. Well, a solo/jungle on there for the side of the Osiris, but the Yamoja banned away, so that's support number 1 taken off the board. This one by the Bolts, who were first pick, surprisingly. Going to be taking that one away, trying to get maybe some other kind of prioritization. We've been seeing a ton of Ymir between the two of them. That was the bulk of their highlights were the Ymir, so I imagine maybe that is priority number 1 for these teams. See Fenrir taken off the board. Not quite a support as much anymore, still more into that jungle role as of recent.
But flexible, I think that's the key, right? If you pick it up on the Bolts, 9 times out of 10, I'm saying, okay, that's probably Lasbra. Like, a majority of the games, it's going to be Lasbra picking it up. If the Kings scoop it up, I'm not so sure anymore. Same thing like if you give it to someone like the Dragons. But I think this is an interesting point just because if you you bounce back and you go back and look at what the last time these teams played, just in Phase 2 as an example, like Bolts, hey, guess what? They're 8-0. They won the set. That's not necessarily a big surprise, but it was pushed to 3 games. That's something the Kings are really adept at doing, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are going to give them a lot of trouble today just in general. I mean, this is, looking at like the next 3 or 4 matchups for the Bolts, I think this is like one of the most difficult, if not just straight up the most difficult, taking on the number 2 team, and that's going to be the difficult thing to try and tackle is the control here, and you can see like with the support bands that already came out, they know where some of the problems are, but at the same time, I mean, you still get 2 of the best mids coming through. You're going to have as well some of the best junglers that are still available for both teams. It's a lot on the line to me.
Bit of an apology there onto that one. We did have it flipped onto there. It is the Kings who are going to be first pick, so they are the ones who are doing the bans on the Emoja, the ban on the Ymir as well. But that did open the wings for the Tiamat and the Morgan Le Fay to come through here, so Kings prioritizing the Tiamat over Morgan Le Fay, where we've seen in the past some teams prioritize Morgan Le Fay over Tiamat. So we'll kind of see where that lies in wait here. But onto the flip side, now into the SEC we got trolled because nobody was picking Artemis. It didn't get banned or picked for 2 straight games, but back here into the SPL, thank goodness people understand just how strong Artemis is. Banned away by the Bolts, but also open for the Gilgamesh to be picked up by the Bolts, and now the Erlong Shen on the side of the Kings.
I like this, again, setup from both sides. Like Gilgamesh drop kicks into what Morgan Le Fay and presumably eventually Bear is going to have is going to feel really solid. But Erlong Shen has been a great pick so far this year for Captain Twig, and I think it fits well with Tiamat having very easy follow-up damage. And this is a unique thing. So, I'm gonna out myself here real fast. I schedule a lot of tweets so I don't spam people's timelines with outrageous stats and numbers.
How dare you? You don't do this in real time.
But someone asked yesterday about specifically the Tiamat versus Morgan Le Fay matchup because it's been happening a little more recently, right? And Tiamat is 4 games to 3 over Morgan Le Fay. So she's got 4 wins versus 3 wins there for Morgan Le Fay. So she's got a little bit of an edge. But this is where things are a little more concerning because what we've seen more recently is those games going to Tiamat. Yesterday, it was overwhelmingly Tiamat, and Morgan Le Fay wasn't able to do so much. So just on that metric, the Bolts are going to have a lot of work to kind of make up for right here. And I think that the Gilgamesh, and I would even argue this Ares, is a great step in that direction.
Well, awesome, Jake. Not willing to wait until the second phase of picks to get his support, and he'll lock in that Ares very quickly at the tail end of that one. And Netroid will get the ROM as well, so we do get to see a little bit of quick support picks, and now we'll start seeing a couple more support bans out of the Bolts. First one being that Fafnir, where on the flip side we do see the Cucullin taken away by the Kings, and I can only imagine maybe a Terra ban? Well, hold on. Terra's still available. Terra's got to be banned
Terra's
here by the Bolts.
Banned. I can't imagine
100%.
they let her through with the way things have been going. Well, I guess so. It's so. And
Solo.
here's where the problem comes because there's so many good supports out there that they've managed to take off. I mean, they've only taken out 2. There's 2 on the other side that were banned out, plus the Ares, which you can consider quote-unquote banned since it's no longer available for the Kings. And yet you're still sitting there like, well, they still have X, Y, and Z that they can play, and genetics is going to play well. That's why this conversation is so important to me, because it's just like, damn, we tried our best to limit him, and it didn't do anything.
So maybe they picked the Terra solo lane here, just to grab it away. That gets him another Guardian, though.
Yeah, but that's just not
so likely.
Not Haddix to me.
Yeah, it's not a Haddix. It's not a Chadix god. I mean, when I think Haddix, I don't think of a Terra who kind of just sits there under the tower for the first couple of levels. I'm thinking of gods like a Gilgamesh, like a King Arthur, locked in here onto the sides of the bolts, so they're going to be able to grab that one there and get Haddock something comfortable into the solo lane. That's going to elect it over to the Kings, where I imagine Gen X will probably pick up this Terra, but there are still other gods available. Cerberus, he's shown that it's in the roster, as well as Khepri, as that one's being picked up here, and will be locked in on the side of the Kings. Still one more pick available. It's going to be their solo laner, I imagine, for that one, as the Erlong Shen was picked up, probably going over into jungle.
Now, I talked about the Ares. I think it's like 7-1 right now for Jake. He's played 8 games, and he's won an overwhelming majority of them. When it gets locked in, we'll cover it. But King Arthur, 86%, 87% if you really want to bump it up there for specifically Haddocks as a win rate. I mean, if the Bolts are going to win, they're doing everything in their power by picking some of their best gods.
All right, so now that this Hell is locked in, is this going to be a solo lane Hell, or is this going to be a solo lane Tiamat? Because I don't imagine either of those go into the jungle very well. You already have the Erlong Shen. Oh, he's flexible to a couple of other spots there. Is this going to be Tiamat solo like we saw previously with the Hell going into mid?
It has to be, right? Like, I just...
I can only imagine.
I mean, Hell,
just
I will give her a little bit of credit. She does just die in the solo lane. It is not going to be easy for her. But way back in metas of yore, it was a great place to put Hell because you get the mana buff, right? She struggles with mana early on. There's a balancing act there, so you can make an argument for it. That being said, it's better for Tiamat almost every single way. Like, I mean, Tiamat is a little more survivable, able to escape a little bit more, has some more reliable CC to help sure that they can get out of there. So I think it's going to be better for Tiamat. Maybe not a necessarily winning lane, but something to keep them off guard. Plus, you get a Khepri Hell. I mean, as long as you make it carte blanche to a team fight, doesn't necessarily matter if you're down 0-8 by that point. As long as you can keep it close, you've now got a Hell and a Khepri in a late game team fight. I mean, you've got 7 effective lives for 5 players.
I mean, I guess it's only fair that I said, you know, which one's going to solo? Which one is Variety more willing to play onto that
probably
one?
Tiamat.
And I would probably say that Tiamat. I don't see Variety.
I didn't think that far into it, but probably Tiamat.
Yeah, I didn't think until after. It's just like, wait a sec. Solo lane. Kings. This is Variety. There's no way Variety's going to play Hell solo. Well, maybe he'll surprise us here today. We'll see where this draft fully lines itself out at. Hachiman was the last god locked in on the side of the Bolts. A little bit of safety over there for Barracuda into that duo lane. He's going to have an Ares for that extra aggression. Hachiman, typically more of a safe hunter. You kind of have that safety with the ultimate, but can play really aggressive when you have something like an Ares partnered with them.
I think that's the key, right? Is with Jake on this Ares, that is the difference maker to me. Khepri, we saw Genetics can do a lot of setup with this pick. Last time we saw it, he didn't have to ult that much, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. He can do a lot of cool saving ults. But I think this Ares is going to be in control of this lane early on. I mean, crippling the ROM, crippling Khepri, it's going to make it very easy to find some early picks. And while Hachiman isn't necessarily like who I go to in my brain as like most aggressive hunter right now, anything paired with an Ares is allowed to be a little aggressive. Plus, Hachiman is safe enough that he's not really overextending by any means if he's up there with Jake.
The Camelot Kings are looking to dethrone the Olympus Bolts. Can they do it in game number 1? We'll take it to the casters to find out.
It's time to get your weekend started, and what a way to kick things off. The Camelot Kings and the Olympus Bolts fighting it out to see if the Bolts can continue their run to attempt to make history. They have the opportunity this weekend to get real close, but they've got to go through the Camelot Kings, then a tough matchup later on in the weekend. And aggro, we have some spice to start off this game, and it is Variety on Hell out of the solo lane. Big man Tings playing the Tiamat in mid.
I'm surprised that the Kings go Hell, but I'm not surprised as the way they work it out, that it's big man Tings on Tiamat, because I was going to be quoting some Goremizer stats, and I think I still will, even though it's big man Tings piloting the Tiamat. Here's why big man Tings should be piloting Tiamat.
In 7 games, it has an 86% win rate in his hands, 11.2 KDA, 626 gold per minute, and 72% kill participation. And that's over 7 games, so a fairly big sample size for stats that are that nuts. It would be crazy to take this Tiamat out of Tings' hands. He's in the arguments for the best Tiamat in the SPL. So I like that they don't take it out of his hands. I'm curious on how Variety is going to be able to hold on during this laning phase. Vamp Shroud being good certainly helps the mage in the solo, but still a scary thought to go up against something like a King Arthur that has all of this mobility in order to chase you down. But I very much like the Hell in this comp for the King, specifically against what the Bolts have, which is this Ares. Ares wants to force your beads, put you on a cooldown,
and then be able to pull you on his next no escape, or have someone else be able to get your beads, then he pulls you on no escape. The game plan here is that people get pulled with no escape. And that just won't happen against 5 beads in Hell. Hell is going to be able to cleanse that ultimate out pretty easily. So I think that if Variety can stay alive and they can protect him in these team fights, then it should work out pretty well. But we'll see if that actually happens.
That is a big if, isn't it, in that lane, especially when Haddix is playing King Arthur, a pick that is so strong in his hands. And that's such a unique aspect of this Olympus Bolts team, and the Camelot Kings as well. Variety's put together a very good Season 8, but I'll hold that thought as Captain Twig under the threat of first blood. But look at the knock-up on the backside, and Twig will secure his escape. Lasbra and Ven thought they had one, but instead, Twig makes it out.
The only way he lives in that situation, I think. Pre-beads the Dragonflight, then go back through them with the knock-up. Very, very smart play from Captain Twig, as expected from a veteran of his status. And his capability in this game is going to be key, because as much as I like the Hell and its capability to cleanse all the CC coming from the bolts, who can start fights? Because it can't be Variety, and it can't really be Genetics.
Uh-oh, Captain Twig. I don't think he's going to escape this one. Haddix and Lasbra combine, and no beads, no chance of the escape, and the blue buff is coming up. This is where some of that threat was, wasn't it, when you can put this pressure onto the Hell?
And oftentimes, whenever you've got a low-pressure solo laner or a susceptible solo laner, it's really not it's not the solo laners themselves that suffer. It's the junglers, because you can't be there to help out on their right side of the map. It's things like that where the bolts know that there's no shot that the Kings can actually contest them in a 2v2 at this point in the game. And I want to see them continue to be aggressive and identify that Twig is the linchpin for this Kings draft. He has to be able to initiate fights because no one else can get them started on their side. You don't always, counter-engaging is certainly an option in a strong one with a draft like this. But that requires the enemy team to not play their initiation perfectly. And have you seen the Olympus Bolts play recently? I don't think they're messing up very many engages all of a sudden. So I think that Twig and his capability in this game is going to be huge. That's why I love the Bolts clearly looking for him early.
And playing around big man Tings as well, as we've talked about earlier, and the success that Tings has already had on this Tiamat pick. I feel like Tings flies under the radar in a lot of talking points, but it's pretty unfair. I think big man Tings is played absolutely incredible so far in Season 8. He had a great Season 7 with that Radiance team as well. Just kind of a head down, keep grinding, keep kind of putting down my opponents type of guy. And I think this specific matchup, Tiamat versus Morgan Le Fay, is another opportunity for big man Tings to shine, because this is a matchup we saw a little bit yesterday. We're starting to see a little bit more of in general, Tiamat versus Morgan Le Fay. And Tiamat aggro's looked a little bit better as of late in this specific matchup in the mid lane.
And I mentioned big man Ting's Tiamat stats. Venenu's Tiamat stats aren't much worse. He's got a 100% win rate across 5 games, though the Bolts are winning all their games recently on nearly no matter what they are playing, so it's somewhat appropriate to take that stat with a grain of salt, but still I think goes to illustrate that the Kings made the right choice by going with this Tiamat. And like you said, putting it into big man Tings' hands, you couldn't find a better guy to do it. When he first moved in the mid lane a few years ago, I would equate him to like a middle-of-the-road quarterback who's not going to lose you games, like an Andy Dalton type.
I know plenty about that.
Incredibly mediocre, totally fine, I suppose. Sort of guy, and he's really evolved into more of a Joe Burrow type that's going to go out there and win you some games,
See, that's a good co-commentator right there. You slam me down a little bit, and then you pick me back up. You give me a little hope to look forward to. In the meantime, though, we saw another blue buff invade from the Olympus Bolts. Not much that Variety can say about it. Seems like one of those things you're just going to have to let go by the wayside and try to sustain up and keep yourself alive, get that farm going for this Hell here. Captain Twig on the Erlang Shen, definitely something we've seen a lot of, but as well as Lasbra on this Gilgamesh, and we've talked plenty about the turnaround year that Lasbra has had. Specifically, I think this Gilgamesh pick has looked great for the Olympus Bolts, and when we brought them in for their media day, I believe one of the questions Score asked was, who do you think one of your most picked gods is? And Gilgamesh was right up there, for good reason. Lasbra looks great on this pick, and that's something the Camelot Kings have to be wary of.
Something that I think a lot of teams have done a much better job of this year in comparison to years past is these pros continue to just get better at understanding the way that they want to play the game stylistically, is that I think that teams have gotten a lot better at understanding how they team fight best and how it's different across each team. Every player is not going to be the exact same style. And identifying that Lasbra should be the primary fight starter for the Bolts has been huge for them. Letting Lasbra pick initiation gods like Serket and Gilgamesh and letting him be the guy has been one of the biggest difference makers for them. I don't like him on these big carry gods in the late game. I don't want to see Lasbra on Kali ever.
I don't want to see anyone on Kali.
Well, yeah, fair point. Look, I'm sure he's good at it.
Right.
But in comparison to how he can control the pace of the game when he's on these initiation gods, it's night and day. And it allows Jake to be a lot more effective because at times Jake gets a little bit too aggressive, takes fights that aren't always the best. Letting someone else dictate the fights and then letting Jake just come in and make his decisions later makes a lot more sense.
Well, Jake doesn't have his ultimate here because he used it to burn Twigs' beads a moment ago. Blue buff taken down. This time Variety is going to pick this one up. So 4 versus 4 grouping at the moment with both hunters still over on the left side. It looks like neither team will overcommit onto a fight for the time being, so they'll be able to back away.
One thing I really appreciate about the Kings and how they play the game is that they go at these late game drafts very often, with Twig being the early game stopgap in order to get them there, and they choose their spots to defend really, really well. It's not just, oh, we're going to give up everything and we'll get there eventually. It doesn't matter if we're down 6K, 7K. We've seen teams try to play like that in the past, and it's hard to execute on. The Kings draft late game comps and then just defend intelligently in order to get there. They don't defend every buff, but when they think they're strong enough, they'll be there, and they won't miss out. They won't give up things for free. They'll make you earn it, but if you earn it, they're not going to overextend. They're not going to overplay their hand, and it speaks to a level of control that they have in their shot calling that it isn't a binary on-off switch. It's it's like installing that nice little slider on your kitchen light. Sometimes you want a little brighter, sometimes you need a little dimmer. And you need some more options between on and off.
And Camelot Kings are much better for it because remember at the beginning of the year we talked about this team. Mifflin specifically, I think, used the term dark horse. I don't know if dark horse does these guys justice anymore. I mean, they are in the race. They're not a dark horse in the race. Just like Netrioid might be a dark horse to survive here in the duo lane. Lasbra drops down Winds of Shamash. The snipes are there, but Barracuda and Laz on either end of it, waiting for the kill to fall, and it's Barracuda who picks it up. Well timed, not much Netrioid could do about it, doesn't even bother burning the beads, but still some skirmishing on the right-hand side.
Twig's in trouble, his beads are still down, but no pull thanks to Variety's help.
Variety, though, now caught in the fray, and Awesome Jake will pick up and kill the Olympus Bolts, picking apart the Camelot Kings all across the map. Netrioid down on left, Variety down on right, and the Olympus Bolts have 3 kills on the board now, 1.8k gold in the lead.
I think Variety assumed Genetics and Big Man Tings were going to be there a little bit earlier, but even if they were, I don't think that's a fight they win. Just not enough damage between any of their damage dealers at this point. Genetics was so close to saving Variety's life with that Scarab's Blessing, but ended up being just barely out of range. And with those picks on each side, it's going to be a Gold Fury for the Olympus Bolts, who were not up by a lot just a few seconds ago, but all of a sudden, less than 10 minutes in, they're up nearly 3,000 gold because of 3 kills and a Gold Fury on top of that. And as good as the Kings are at defending intelligently and picking their moments, that's the risk that you incur whenever you play defensively, is that if you mess up on defense and the enemy team is going to be strong on offense, it's hard. You lose a lot pretty quickly, and that's what's happening right now to the Kings.
And it's these next few moments, isn't it, for the Kings, where this is Olympus Bolts team. They're playing like we know that they can play, or that they have played on their massive undefeated run here so far, 8-0. It's then these next objectives, because the Bolts are going to continue doing exactly what they're doing right now. They're going to send Jake, maybe a couple on over to right, see if you can burn some beads, see if you can get something going there. Variety might have to cleanse some things out. And so maybe, we talked a lot about the Hell cleanse earlier on in the game. A lot of it might hinge onto that, of course, but if Awesome Jake continues doing what he did, remember he solo ulted Captain Twig a moment ago just to burn the beads.
Yep.
And he wasn't super concerned about that. So little plays like that tend to make the difference for the Bolts and allow them to keep doing what they want to be doing here. Pyromancer started up. Captain Twig is close by. Variety is as well. Pyro resets. So the Camelot Kings feeling like they can get aggressive here. The double taunt in from Captain Twig, who then dashes away. But Awesome Jake burning away at the front line here. There's a slight knock up on the back end. The pull is there onto Variety, but will use the beads to keep himself at bay.
Still if you trade beads for Ares ult, the vast majority of the time that's a win for the Ares. The difference here is that there's a hell on the other side, so not always a guaranteed win for you. But I like that this is great for the Kings. Pyromancer doesn't even fall for the bolts. Barracuda makes a big rotation all the way over to that fight just in case, and the Kings disengage it at the right time. They don't stick around, and they let Netrioid continue to push. He gets the first tower on the left side, gets a couple extra waves that Barracuda does not, and does that amount to a massive lead? Of course not, but it shows good map presence from the Kings.
Anti-heal then becomes a topic of conversation. The conversation we'll have in a moment after Awesome Jake goes down and the Camelot Kings find themselves on the board. Just a bit of an overstay from Jake on the Ares. Get taken into combat, you can't blink away. Easy pickings for the Kings. And they're going to shrink up that gold gap even further. Now the Pyromancer gets picked up as well. Remember, we were looking at 2K plus, right back down to about 1,000.
You're seeing the effect of a hell already, that sustained just sitting in these fights for a long time. Many Bolts members back after that skirmish. Camelot Kings were able to stick around, and the first blood was really a product of a lack of wards from Netrioid on the left-hand side. That pick for the Kings, their first kill of the game, a product of lack of wards there from the Bolts. No good wards in that side of the jungle, and Jake just miscalculated how many members there were. Don't think he needed to be there either way. I mean, I don't know what he was really gaining from standing at that point, and that's to illustrate the earlier point that it's usually best for the Bolts whenever Lasber is the one doing their initiations.
It's the duality of Jake, isn't it? You get the walk it down on these sort of immobile support picks, but then those same support picks will tear through enemy teams later on in the game. So not always lost. 1-1 for Awesome Jake here. Venenu trying out a bit of a different build from what we've seen on the Morgan Le Fay up to this point. Have seen heavy and anti-heal. Little CDR early on here with Sands of Time, Spear of Deso. And then anti-heal, as I mentioned earlier, becomes a pretty important topic with the hell on the other side. Already a Pestilence, Brawler's Beatstick, and then Divine Ruin for Venenu if we're continuing that build.
I like the build for Ven. Double flat pen that used to be super meta and has not really been the case for a while, but I think really still feels good on a lot of mages. I think I would personally prefer Magus on Morgan Le Fay because it does lean into that ultimate and the lifesteal potential that she's going to have. And I don't know that it would be enough to incentivize the Kings to build anti-heal. So I think Magus might be my preferred slot there, but getting 20% CDR early feels really good on this character. And of course you need the Divine. Maybe in a game where you don't need Divine, which are few and far between these days, you can go Magus in that slot and have it feel really, really strong. But this smooths out the Morgan Le Fay early game a little bit, still gets her to that very strong late game. It is worth noting that Ven is fairly far behind. He's down over a full level to Big Man Tings, so closer to 2 really. At this point, it's level 15 now, nearly the highest in the game for Big Man. And this has been a trend for Tiamat.
Yeah.
She just keeps getting ahead of these Morgan Le Fays.
I feel like that's exactly what happened yesterday when we were casting this matchup. It was a massive level lead for the Tiamat. Morgan Le Fay a little bit behind, and then you try to play around that. I assume then if you're the Camelot Kings, you think, all right, we've got a 2-level lead in the mid lane, Chronos Pendant, Charon's Coin, eventually a Soul Gem for this Tiamat. Let's see if we can get Big Man Tings involved around one of these objectives. Oni Fury has come back up. Pyromancer, of course, was taken down just a few moments ago. So maybe that's now the mindset for this Camelot Kings team. We've got a very strong Tiamat. Try to protect it, but also get it involved as early as we can.
That's your biggest leverage point now if you're the Kings, is that you got this Tiamat who's got 30% CDR plus 20% pen through just 3 items, and that's gotta feel really good for Big Man. And the lack of flat pen doesn't really matter too much because he's so far ahead that he's gonna do a ton of damage to someone like this Gilgamesh who's down 4 levels to him, 2 levels to his jungle opposition.
Uh-oh, Genetics a bit caught out here. He'll dash away, but Lasber wants to close that gap around the side. Both of the carries for the Camelot Kings close the gap, and Lasber left alone. 1 and 2, good on to Barracuda. Is the third there? It's Aegis out, but now Big Man Tings can jump on in, and he's got the damage, and Barracuda's got no chance. Now Awesome Jake being chased down. The chains are out, and he'll dodge out the pin, so he'll survive for the time being.
Captain Twig's gonna find Ven, force out the ultimate though, and Ven's already uses Purification Beads. This is a great dive coming from Twig, but maybe a little too much.
What do the Kings want to do here? You've got Big Man Tings feeling good about himself now, but a bit risky to go for a dive against Ven and Awesome Jake at this point. Oni Fury is there. That's what the Camelot Kings are considering for the time being. Captain Twig needs someone else to start it up, and Big Man Tings will be the one alongside Genetics ultimately tanking things. Big swing now. Barracuda goes down. The Camelot Kings pick up a kill, and the Oni Fury were brought right back to even a little bit ahead now for the Kings.
2 kills in their favor because they killed Lasber
That's right.
as well. And
That's right.
we're talking about his fight selection earlier. That was a poor one. Genetics does a great job of baiting to his team, uses his beads properly, but teams just continue to struggle to play against Khepri, and it takes so, for whatever reason, God's coming in out of meta and players struggling to play against them when they first come back is incredibly common. You know, gods like Thor, you'll see them get free dunk after free dunk after free dunk in lane, and then like 2 weeks into them being SPL meta, everyone will stop dying to Thor ganks all of a sudden because they'll remember, where do we need to ward against Thor? We have to play a little bit more respectfully. It takes time for that muscle memory to kick back in. And for whatever reason, I feel like Khepri takes the longest for everyone to adjust back to. Like, people just continue to all in Khepri and all in gods around the Khepri and just struggle to play around that ultimate and seemingly get caught off guard by it consistently. And again, right there, it's all inning onto the Khepri when he still has his ultimate. You can't commit both your dashes or your jumps and your ultimates to him unless you know he's alone and that you can kill him off the res. And there was no world in which the Olympus Bolts were going to kill him off the res. And I don't think the game plan should be, let's hope he forgets to ult himself, or we like burst him before he ults himself.
Doesn't happen often.
No, that doesn't seem like a good game plan to me.
When that opened up, then Big Man Tings, who again has this big level lead in Netrioid, finds some damage. Haddix gets taunted back through, has to use the beads, but maybe a dive coming here from the Camelot Kings. The root is there on the other end, but Haddix will dash on away. Tier 1 tower eventually goes down, but watch out. Here come the Olympus Bolts from the left side. Awesome Jake's got his ultimate, but doesn't want to use it yet.
And see the difference of the Bolts. Normally, if Lasber were a little bit closer to, say, the level 18 that Tiamat is, I think he'd be blink ulting in that spot. But he's built to pull full damage. He's going to get one shot by this back line, and so he can't start that fight. Jake walks up and takes this type of damage instead.
My goodness, Awesome Jake. Yeah, I can't participate here. Veneno gets ticked down by a little bit of damage there as well. So the Camelot Kings, without FG, sieging up a Tier 2 tower on the right-hand side, shy of 20 minutes into the game. And this one is going to go cleanly. The Olympus Bolts don't have much of a leg to stand on. At this point, if you're the Bolts, maybe you're just hoping that the Kings reach level 20 and you can start to close up that gap and bring things back closer to even.
Look, it feels a little weird to say the Captain America quote for a team that doesn't have any American players, but the Kings can do this all day. They can stand there and toss out their longer range poke with the Tiamat and sustain up with their Hell and just continue to play these long range fights like that for the rest of the game. Because the Bolts don't have an answer to that long range damage. They don't have anyone who can match that, and they don't have that capability to initiate yet because this Gilgamesh is so far behind. If you're the Bolts now, you've got to brace yourselves and hold on for dear life until Lasbra is able to get some items and get some more XP, and hopefully at one point be able to dive in, and then hope his target selection's good. Yep. And I'm looking down the list of his targets, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of good ones for him because this Hell has now reached her point of nearly full CDR. You've got Genji's Guard and this Breastplate of Valor, so you've got a ton of mana and a ton of MP5. Your Lotus Crown gives you protections to your teammates whenever you heal them, and even more power and protection in MP5. And now an E-Staff in order to get some more health on top of that and some more power. Hell is not completely unmanageable. You know, the game's not over for Camelot Kings, but I would call them heavily favored from this position because this is the point of the game that they drafted for, and they've gotten here.
They've gotten here, and they've gotten here convincingly. And the Olympus Bolts now hoping, as you mentioned, some of those builds will catch up. Looks like Veneno was considering a Soul Reaver, abandoned it after Tier 1, ended up going Obsidian Shard. A little percent pen online might help with some of those frontliners that are diving in. Jake has to use the blink, and that is tough, isn't it, on this Ares where you want to blink in an ult, and then if you get some pulls and you die, you're okay with it? Don't have that ability now under the FG, and that's what the Camelot Kings are going to take advantage of. They're going to start up the Fire Giant.
Genetics can tank this for a while if Variety's going to be able to heal him up, but Variety's frontline.
Oh, Frenzy is used here, and awesome Jake will use the pull. He's got a lot in the chains, but he'll be killed off before Latter's killing spree for Big Man Tings, and the Camelot Kings routing the Olympus Bolts in a Fire Giant skirmish. Back to the FG go the Kings. this one should go quietly.
I'm pretty sure I thought I recognized him on my milk carton this morning, but Lasbra's missing apparently. He wasn't there.
Call someone about
yeah,
that.
we should call someone about it. He was in that fight very momentarily because he dropped to the ult. But that's what I'm talking about. If your fight starter is having that happen to them, they're not starting fights, they're ending by blinking in and going in that situation. And Jake gets caught because, again, we don't have an initiator on this Bolts draft if we're not able to get in. And the Kings are in a perfect position now because, yes, the weakness of their team composition is that they only have one initiator, and it's a beadsless CC, or now without beads, but it's a character with no CC immunity who's pretty squishy in this Erlong Shen. But when the Bolts are forced to come to the Camelot Kings, then Khepri can act as an initiator. He can just root the Ares, force him to blink. Those sorts of situations where Khepri can control that space really cleans up a lot of the potential flaws in this Kings draft. And they're doing it perfectly, man.
Yep.
I mean, they did not get punished in the early stages like the Bolts really needed them to do, and now they're in a position where those flaws that they have in their draft aren't really even noticeable because they're so far ahead.
Right, and it was slightly concerning early, wasn't it, where the Olympus Bolts, for the Kings at least it was concerning, where the Olympus Bolts felt like they were starting to run things, early Fury, a couple picks go over, but then the Kings able to weather the storm. And right as we start talking about it, start playing around big man things on this Tiamat, and then the rest of the fights start going their way. And now it feels like everyone is ahead here on the Camelot Kings. So we take a quick pause, Fire Giant gets taken down, the Olympus Bolts immediately, because remember, Tier 2 got taken without FG earlier on in this game, so now right side Phoenix is already open.
Right.
Camelot Kings can ignore that for a moment, you assume, and look for the other towers that are on the map. The Olympus Bolts are already considering Phoenix defense, 20 minutes into the game.
And Morgan Le Fay, not particularly good on those Phoenix defense. I think she's okay. That Sigil Mastery, dropping a Fear over the wall, that's very, very good.
Right.
But Wildfire is pretty difficult to execute on. Dragonflight's a close-range only ability. You don't have that massive burst damage over a wall that you're really looking for, and you don't have that great poke potential. And if you want to be clearing the wave, you have to use the one ability that I think is good to mess with the enemy team in Sigil Mastery. So I think that's another point in Tiamat's favor, that I think she's much better on base defense than Morgan Le Fay is. I'm just surprised, Dave, that teams are still thinking that they are really comparable at this point. It's been pretty overwhelming.
Look, we're thinking about Tiamat when she first came into the league and she lost like 4 games straight or something like that. We could do it again, right? I mean,
no, Morgan Le Fay is really good, okay? Really, really good.
I'm saying the answer to Tiamat. They're like, look, Tiamat lost a few games. We could do it again. Right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone remembers those at this point. I think they're remembering the losing to the minions, which doesn't even happen anymore,
right?
For the record. It's just that her late game poke damage with the 1 is unbelievable.
Yep.
She's hard to kill. I don't know, man. I just don't think they're in the same class anymore.
We're going to just see how hard Big Man Tings is to kill here. Depending on how aggressively or defensively he wants to position, the Olympus Bolts are going to have a difficult time getting back there. Good news is, if he's able to stay out of combat somehow, Awesome Jake has his blink and the ult. Bad news is, once Twig and Netrioid wait 5 seconds, every single person on the Camelot Kings is going to have their beads, and there's a hell on the other side. So target selection difficult. Haddix has chosen genetics, maybe just because that 2 ended up standing in front of him. Look how much damage Jake has taken for walking forward. Half HP now on the Ares, and he's got to back off.
And that was just Big Man Tinks. Dropped that Typhoon and a great blink in from Twig.
Barracuda answers with his ultimate, though, to avoid being taunted back through. Lasbra has to jump defensively here, and Netrioid will roll away. Olympus Bolts, without a doubt, looking for worse for wear after that small little skirmish. 3 members at half HP, left Phoenix gone. Back to the fountain they go, and the Camelot Kings got what they came for.
Just perfect. I mean, it's Haddix blinks in and looks to start the fight, but Big Man has already dropped that Typhoon on top of Jake, so he can't blink in, and he's taking damage the entire time. He can't afford to walk forward. And so all of a sudden, Haddix is alone and has to immediately back up upon landing because his team isn't going to be there. I don't know if Lasbra needs to go in at that exact same time, because I think if he does, the Bolts likely just lose them both and really bait a fight that was never going to go well because of how good the poke damage was from the Kings. And the Hell Sustain is there. I mean, you can't even tell they were in the siege from even when they were getting the Phoenix. Everyone was plenty healthy. I think that the Kings just really came in with a very smart draft and have executed really well. And I think we got to give some credit to Variety in this game. For the Kings' success, I mean, everyone talks about genetics and big man tings for good reason, and Netrioid is often topping the kill charts for this team and doing great things, and we talk about Captain Twig's versatility and how important he is. Variety has been huge for this roster, and for him to be able to totally switch the play style to this hell.
Add some variety.
I'm waiting until you say sorry.
Sorry.
To totally switch his play style and go to something like this hell and really be able to understand that his role is entirely different in this game. And for them to do it this seamlessly is very impressive.
It absolutely is. And now the Olympus Bolts set far from over, but game 1 seems to be getting close at least, and you want to keep this undefeated streak alive. You have to either put up a stand here and win 1 more, or somehow win 2 straight games against this Camelot Kings team that is firing on all cylinders. We were concerned about how far Venenu had fallen, how far behind he had fallen from big man Tings. Really, Lasbra has now gotten really far behind. We've mentioned how difficult it's been for Lasbra to find that engagement. Was 4 levels behind Captain Twig just a moment ago, while Venenu has closed up the level gap there in mid. And so he's same level as the supports here in this game, if that gives you some sort of indication of how difficult it's been for Lasbra on this Gilgamesh. The next Fire Giant will respawn here, and I think with no surprise, the Olympus Bolts are going to take their chances underneath their Phoenixes instead of stepping up to contest.
They just need Lasbra to get some more farm. I just don't know, he's working on a Titan's Bane, and we talk about it a lot, where when you're behind, building defense obviously doesn't make a difference because you just get one shot anyways, so you might as well build some damage. I think this might be the exception to that rule. I think I would have liked to see Lasbra try and get some sort of tankiness down, a Spirit Robe or a Mantle of Discord, just get some all procs and try to be able to withstand this onslaught that is the Camelot Kings.
The Camelot Kings now turn their eyes towards the Phoenix that was first opened up earlier on in this game, right side, and look at how much damage it is passively taken here. Now you do have to worry about fire minions. Waves pushing down the left. Awesome Jake uses his ultimate there, but Variety cleanses everyone. No beads have to get used there, but the Olympus Bolt able to re-engage now on the back end. What's happening here? The Camelot Kings starting to crumble. 1 down, but there's a kill traded out. Venenu on the backside still wailing away at Captain Twig. Low health targets if Variety is able to re-engage, but he's not. And the Olympus Bolt stand strong under their right side Phoenix.
They stand strong, but they're not able to really get as many kills as they needed if they want to really turn this game. Still, they keep their right side Phoenix alive momentarily, but with how much damage their Titan's going to take from this fire wave and being able to defend that left side Phoenix as it spawns, I'm not surprised the Kings are going to try their hand at sticking around, but I don't think they can do it without Netrioid here, and they will have to back it up. And the big difference there, Dave, for the Bolts is that they're able to actually initiate the fights like their composition wants to. That time, they use Jake as the primary initiator. He doesn't stand around and get poked out. He gets in and gets his value right away. Big 4-man ultimate. And even though the Kings don't use any beats for it, it's just 1 cleanse from Variety, which he does perfectly. You know what they have to do in order to all get cleansed? Stand in the same little circle. Yep. They have to condense. And the Bolts do not hesitate. It's Barracuda's ultimate. It's a good sigil mastery from Venenu. It's Haddix blinking in. It's Lasbra blinking in. And immediately, the Kings take damage as a team instead of as a target. And that's what Khepri struggles against, is when he doesn't know who to res. Now, he got a great res off anyways. He got big man Tings, extended his life. Still, Tings ends up falling in the end. But that was much better from the Bolts. And now their Phoenixes are up. They've got a chance, but they can't lose Jake here.
This game is far from over, but it could be if this fight goes the way of either team. And the first kill goes to the Kings, immediately traded out as Netrioid goes down. Captain Twig chasing down Barracuda. Has he got the damage? Yes, he does. Down goes Barra. Then Awesome Jake follow him to the grave as well. Now Lasbra has to use the beads, but the Camelot Kings, they found their picks. They're chasing down the stragglers, and they'll take game 1.
That was huge for the Kings. It nearly worked out well for the Bolts. Lasbra's drop kick had actually hit Variety into Captain Twig. It would have stunned them both, and Barra might have been able to do some nasty things with that Hachiman, but it was just barely off the mark on an incredibly difficult to execute play, and it ends up not being quite enough. Jake just in the wrong spot on that Ares. Just gets picked way too early, doesn't use his ultimate as CC immunity, doesn't blink away if it was up. It might not have been whenever he got rooted, but all I know is that he didn't get a chance to affect that fight at all, and I don't think the Bolts were winning that fight 5v4.
I don't think Awesome Jake here is going to have anything to say about this Titan defense, and the Camelot Kings will take down the Olympus Bolts in game number 1. And it's convincing. This is a convincing win from the Camelot Kings. The Olympus Bolts, they stood in there in the early game. They just didn't have an answer for big man Tings early, and the Kings played around that perfectly.
So the Bolts are mortal. They can make mistakes. I think that we saw what plagued them before this win streak, you know, falling behind in the jungle and losing Lasbra, and you see how important he has been to this win streak and to this team. The mid 2v2 fell really far behind in Venenu and Lasbra. Take away the Tiamat, make sure that your mid jungle doesn't fall behind, and I think the Bolts are going to be okay. But let's start with taking away that Tiamat, huh?
Yeah, no more Tiamat. Unless we're picking it, I don't want it in the game. And that's I think that's a good strategy to follow here for the Olympus Bolts. Game number 1 to the Camelot Kings. Can they take it 2-0 over the Bolts and end that win streak? Find out after this.
What's up, SMITE fans? Dolson here, and if you haven't already, you want to make sure you're checking out twitch.tv/SMITEGame on Mondays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time, because we are doing the team content days where we bring in one of your favorite SPL teams. We sit down and do all sorts of crazy content with them. We've got Emotion.
Let's go!
Holy moly, man.
We've got Mifflin throwing himself at the green screen. We've got plenty of actual informative content around all of your favorite SMITE players and teams themselves.
Because we weren't really thinking about like the console. We were thinking about like how can we beat the PC teams.
So make sure you tune in on Mondays from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time to twitch.tv/SMITEGame. And hey, don't worry, if you can't catch it there, you can't catch it live, make sure to go to youtube.com/SmitePro to catch the VODs after the fact. It's a whole lot of fun. You don't want to miss it because, hey, you never know what's going to happen.
Yep. That's, chat. You just got to know who's daddy. That's just how it be, man.
Welcome back. After a Game 1 defeat of the Bolts, Camelot Kings come out on top. I want to give a shout out to our apparel sponsor here, Inside Apparel. You can go to shop.smiteproleague.com to pick yourself up some sick Smite Pro League merch like the hoodie and the t-shirt that we have provided. There's also hats and jerseys like you'll see me and Gore wearing here over here onto the desk. That way you can flex on your friends and say, hey, look, I got some really sweet merch. It's just like our man Captain Twig was able to flex there into the video, but not just because he's wearing some sick apparel, but also because they got a win over here onto the Bolt score, able to take Game 1 off them, though not the first team that's done that to them in a Game 1. We saw the Dragons take a game off them earlier on in the season for a Game 1. So the Bolts, they are mortal, but they've also been in this position before.
Yeah, only once this phase, though, right? And the
Yeah.
Dragons were able to push them, and game number 1, the Bolts bounced back in 2 and 3 and won that set, but this feels a little different. I mean, we'll have to see how well they adapt, but like you had said, there was a lot going on. I think Twig is kind of the center of the conversation on the side of the Kings, where he is getting a lot of setup, and it led to a lot of ease of access for players like Netruoid, where everything was, now, I don't want to say provided for him. He hit a lot of really good shots. There were actually some sick ults that happened throughout this entire game as well. But the damage numbers between him and BMT was just too much to handle, and Aggro had highlighted it earlier. I had listed them out. But BMT had won 6 out of 7, now 7 out of 8 of these Tiamat games that he's gotten to play this year. I mean, it is absolutely insane to see what this player has been able to do on this god. And it did kind of showcase to us that, you know what, yes, while we think Tiamat might actually be maybe better, quote-unquote, for solo, not if BMT is going to be playing it, especially if Variety is going to be able to pull a hell out like this. I mean, that 5-man cleanse was, I mean, maybe one of the best hell plays I've gotten to see. And that's including last year when there were a lot of really sick hell plays. I mean, it is just amazing to see what they were capable of doing. And it was despite a little bit of an early game lead there for the Bolts.
And Big Man Ting's not just upping one more Tiamat win in his personal column, but also one more Tiamat win over Morgan Le Fay. Now 5 and 3 up against that god into there. So maybe we see some priority shift here for the Bolts in game number 2 to maybe either pick that one up or at least take it away from Big Man Tings at the very least of. And topping the damage charts onto it as well. 20,000 player damage. No one else within 3,000 to even be able to catch up to him.
I mean, looking back at the bans, I anticipate the Tiamat maybe sneaking her way back up there. It's just the question of who gets let through all of a sudden. You know, Umoja, Odin, Ymir were the bans for the Kings. And if they're going to continue being first pick, then all of a sudden, you know, they're not sweating about it. They'd love to get Umoja back. And then it's Osiris, Fenrir, and Artemis on the other side. So it's like, I mean, I guess Osiris is maybe the best one to let through. Because I would argue if you let Tiamat and Osiris through, or if you ban Tiamat and Osiris goes through, they probably pick Morgan Le Fay. You get to grab that Osiris, which you have run in the jungle and in solo lane. Could make things interesting for them. But you can tell, look, anytime Barra is either A, not eating bread, or B, not characteristically smiling in the typical Barracuda way, deep in consternation, deep in thought about how they're going to turn this one around, I think you can tell that the Bolts are focused.
It's kind of one of those, all right, we're flipping the switch into serious mode now here kind of thing for Barracuda, and then Jake dialed in as always there into that support role. Saw quite a lot of bans focus through him into the picks and ban phase, but I think the big talking point onto it now is kind of just getting
He sits so still, it looked like a picture for a little bit.
I was a little concerned for him at the moment. I was like, can we get a check and make sure that he's good onto that one? But now we get to see where everything falls into place here for picks and bans. Game number 2. You were talking about maybe just go ahead and ban the Tiamat and give them the option. Do you want Morgan Le Fay? Do you want Osiris? Because then we get the flip end of it. I think that's a good call into that one because characteristically, as of late, Osiris, at least out of the jungle, hasn't had the strongest of performances, and even into the solo lane, kind of waning a little bit onto the lower end of it.
Yeah, I'm. It's all about the pivot, right? I mean, a lot of it, as you had highlighted, like it's so difficult to tackle. How many gods have we mentioned necessary to ban so far this set? Because I feel like it's gotten to the point where it's almost 10.
A lot.
Like it's too difficult. And what's interesting to me is that the Bolts are making a heavy pivot, and maybe even saying that well, as of right now, that maybe it's not the Tiamat that's the problem, but maybe the healing that came through. Plus, I mean, you gotta face it, Hell plus Khepri in the middle of a team fight is maybe one of the most frustrating things to play against. Because, like you said, you know, you can all in 3 people. Get them all to 10% health, and then they get out. they get out alive either from a res, they get out alive either from a good heal, maybe a good cleanse, as we saw several times. But it's something that they're going to have to, I think, figure out here.
Well, they will go with the Tiamat ban, as well as the Osiris and Hel mentioned previously. And on to the flip side, we see the same 3 bans out of the Kings, the Yamocha, the Odin, and the Ymir taken off the table. So that does leave Morgan Le Fay available if the Kings wish to grab that one for big man Tings right away, though there are still some other mid laners out there. Raijin has been one of the big ones onto it.
Artemis still available as well, which is
Wow.
something that was the last ban from the Bolts in Game 1. And it's that difficult question you got to ask
really is
yourself
tough
right
here.
now. How much better is Artemis than, say, like your Roms or some of these other hunters we've seen showcased over the last couple of days and last week, versus how great is like Morgan Le Fay versus some, your Raijins, your Merlins, etc. How well and how highly do you value some of these really high-pressure picks that could potentially change a lot of it? So they're back in it because Bear just took a bite of bread. That's they're in this for serious now.
We'll have to figure out what grain he's eating on today, because he normally has the 12 grain.
Man.
So we'll have to find out what he's eating today, because I mean this is a big one for him. He's got to have the right grain ready to go for it. But it's gonna be the Gilgamesh first pick coming here for the Kings, making sure to pick that one up and keep it in their hands nice and safely. Now, it flips back over to the Bolts. They've got free reign of it. They've got 2 picks. They've got Morgan Le Fay they can go. They've got Artemis that they can go for.
And that'd be my 2.
I think so. Look. Mivla and I watched an SEC set this morning, and Artemis was left open 2 games. Didn't get banned, didn't get picked the whole way through, and instead of Cupid got locked in its place onto it. So I can never count anybody out onto this if they want to pass it by, but it will be Morgan Le Fay locked in here for the Bolts grabbing that. Still one more pick left.
I will say, if there is a hunter in the game, there are 2 hunters I think I could give this credit to. If they were going to not pick Artemis to play against it, it would probably be Bera and Zap, right? Just because of tenure and the history they've had. They've played against it so many times when it was meta that they might be like the most willing to say, okay, you know what, we can deal with it. But I think this is like the must-have top 2, right? I mean, you highlighted, it's like, look at the top 2 power picks that are almost always banned that are available right now. Hey, I'm going to scoop them up immediately. That Gilgamesh is going to have to put in so much work because of those counter picks that the Bolts just grabbed.
Well, Rom is going to be the response one more time. Netroid's really been swaying towards this god. I'm sure you could probably get me the exact numbers on what this player specifically has done for this Rom, but it seems earlier on into the season, he really liked the On Her. It was a really strong pick for him. He made some killer plays onto it, got a few really cinematic solo kills with it, but now he's been straying back to the Rom. We see Genetics again go on to the Khepri as well to round out this dual lane and still leave a little bit of ambiguity with this Gilgamesh pick.
And you were asking for the numbers for it, but 5-1 now, including that last game.
Okay.
4-1 prior to this, so he's been doing pretty well on it. Hey, numbers really comparable to someone like Big Man Tings' Tiamat. So something you need to be worried about. But it is the matchup versus the Artemis, right? Artemis has a lot of CC. I like Rom's ult, I think, a little bit more just because it is something that you can control a little more, like, attainably, as opposed to where Tusky goes. Sometimes Tusky helps, sometimes Tusky leaves you out for dead and left to dry. So we'll figure it out, but I think that Bear is going to be more than happy with it. The CC that Artemis brings is going to be crucial in the middle of a team fight and very helpful for them. Plus, they stripped this Erlong away from the jungle. I guess that Gilgamesh probably already did that, but they get a good pick for Lasbra, another setup-oriented pick. There were a couple of drop kicks that didn't really quite hit the mark last game, as well as the unfortunate fall behind in the jungle that they had. And so hopefully this is going to be something to get them a little bit more on track and straighten the ship.
Well, Fenrir and Raijin banned away for the Bolts, making sure to keep a premier mid laner taken down, and as well as a premier jungler in that Fenrir. Where on the flip side, the Kings respond with a couple of support bans. They've already got Genetics gods on there. Might as well ban a couple away from Jake. They're going to take away his Ares from last game, which, if there wasn't a Hell, would have been really sick, because he had 5 people in that one ult by the Phoenix.
Yep.
But there was a Hell, and so that just means cleanse, and we're good to go. And then also banning the Geb away, Horus locked in here.
Wow.
Now this is a little bit of a spicy one. Only seen 3 games so far, as you see. Only won 1 of those 3. Now that's just overall in the SPL, but now Jake picking up this god.
If I remember correctly, one of the picks that Horus has had is Jake, and that's the thing that's really weird. I had prepared it as one of the potential talking points on Waiting Room, where it's just, I mean, it's not something we see often. Who's played it other than him? Wrong you, right? It's realistically only been 2 supports that are hammering this one forward. But he's got a lot of great things. I think, especially against a Khepri, you've got Prot Shred, you've got a reliable stun, you've got a knock-up. It enables this Artemis, I think, to continue aggression as well as a heal and some really, really cool team fight and team play capabilities that we might be able to see. And so I like this duo lane. I will say, this is relying, I think, a lot on the Hunters early on. Khepri has good defensive clear. Horus is really hoping that Artemis is going to do a lot. So realistically, I think the Kings, for the first few levels, are going to be able to control that lane.
It almost, with Horus and Artemis comboing together, almost kind of gives me a pseudo vibe of like a Jingwei Terra lane, where one of them gets the stun for the setup into, the persistent gust knockup for it. But in this case, it's going to be Horus doing both the stun and the knockup, but setting up into a trap after on for that one for the Artemis to get that. So a lot of CC potential, a lot of kill potential in that lane for them. And to round out the draft for the Kings, they go with the Hera into the mid lane for Big Man Tings. They grab the Xing Chen as well for variety. And then a Cullen to kind of round out the rest of this one here onto the Bolts, throwing that one over in the solo lane.
And I'm excited to see how this one's going to shake out. I mean, I was going to give a lot of credit to Haddix because this King Arthur, what did I say, it was like an 87%, I believe, before that game, now a little bit lower because of that loss. I mean, this Cullen is not as far up there in terms of success rate. In fact, the Bolts don't even run it as often. They've only played it 5 times this year. So this is going to be something that needs to hit hard for them to be able to find success. But if you're looking at the setup that Xing Chen is bringing, the setup that Gilgamesh is bringing, I think Erlong, Shin, Kukulin, and Horus are going to be able to bring that to the next level. It's just going to be those knockups versus the Xing Chen engage. I mean, there's a lot of beads burners on each side, and so follow-up damage from Artemis, follow-up damage from the Morgan Le Fay, all of that's going to be coming into the equation here. But I think the Kukulin might be one of the best to help spearhead this team into victory.
This draft almost kind of gives me vibes back with like the triple Guardian double Hunter style, where you have 3 big bulky frontliners and 2 hard-hitting carries onto it. But instead of 2 Hunters, it's an Artemis and a Morgan Le Fay backed by 3 Warriors, all with decent CC and pretty hefty damage onto it. And then you have a Horus for some extra heal onto it. Before we kind of jump into the game here, Gore, just give me your prediction. Who you got on this one?
This is a very tough call. Yeah, I'm trying to play through like a good team fight with these gods in my head and see how it goes. Like hi-rez really makes me lean a little bit more towards the Kings just because that is so problematic. But we've seen some great plays out of a Horus in the right occasion. Same thing with the Kukulin. I like the setup for the Bolts, and I think it's a little more consistent since they have it coming from 3 places, so I'm going to lean towards them.
Well, we'll see if the Bolts are able to take it to game number 3, or are the Camelot Kings going to shut them out? Dave and Aggro are going to bring us the call.
Well, if we do get to a game 3, J-Mac, it's certainly not something that the Olympus Bolts are not used to. They are on a win streak here in Phase 2, but the last time they played the Kings, the last time they played the Leviathans, and the last time they played the Dragons, the other 3 teams in the top 4, all those matchups went to a game 3. So, Aggro, if we're going to get another day of undefeated Olympus Bolts, it's going to have to go 3, and it's got to start now.
Listen, winning 2 in a row against Camelot Kings, not the start, I'm sure, that the Bolts wanted to put themselves in, but I like the adjustments they've made in their draft. I like taking that hell away. I like taking the Tiamat away, as we talked about at the end of Game 1. That needed to be a necessity if they weren't in the first pick position. And the Bolts, remember, they get to choose as the losers which side they want to be on. They choose second pick, and I think they came away with the better draft overall because you get Morgan Le Fay and Artemis, and that's really what you need. You just need those 2 gods, and your back line is solidified. The one question mark I have about the Bolts draft, how effective is this Horus really going to be? He's all about single target. He's all about setting up to kill one person, and that's what Khepri plays against better than anyone. So I'm curious on how it's going to go here for Jake.
That's a great point. And then even history so far in this year of the SPL, only a couple supports have tried the Horus. Jake is one of them. Wrong You, as Goremizer pointed out, was the other. So not a lot of data on Wrong You in general, much less against the Khepri on the other side. Bit of a pivot here for Haddix at the desk highlighted as well. Big pivot for variety off the Hell onto the Xing Chen. So the solo lane matchup's going to look a little bit different this time in the individual picks, but maybe not so different in the way that lane goes. I mean, you expect the Xing Chen to absorb a lot of, take a lot of pressure, I guess is the way I'm trying to word it, right,
Sure.
early on. So maybe that's an opportunity for the Olympus Bolts here. They can try to put some pressure on this blue buff maybe in the next couple rotations.
Pretty similar to how you want to play against the Hell, right? Starve her out from the blue buff, don't give her that farm and XP. Xing Chen similar, but obviously gets to a point where it's not the sustain that becomes the problem, it's the survivability and the CC that he's going to bring. And there is a lot of CC on the side for the Camelot Kings. And that's another reason why I'm a little scared about this Horus, because I don't think he does particularly well into heavy CC compositions. You know, he's going to try and fracture in, and if he gets interrupted in the middle of that dash or, you know, just gets picked up by a Xing Chen, it's pretty easy to just time that and really put him in a bad spot. And then all of a sudden he gets abducted into polymorphed. This composition for the Kings is really good at killing tanks. They have a lot of long duration CC, like Abduct, like Polymorph, like Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. A lot of those do not get DR'd, and there's a lot of tanks on the side of the Bolts that don't have CC immunity that you can kill.
Early pressure onto the blue buffs is something we thought we would see. Captain Twig's got something to say about it, though. Lasbra drop kicked against the wall. Haddix does steal away the blue, and luckily for the Bolts, that one is how that ends up, as Haddix is able to get the blue buff, but Lasbra has to use his beads. If he didn't use them there, might have taken a little bit more damage than he bargained for. But that's what we expected, right? We knew that early in this lane, Haddix plus Lasbra would likely have the advantage in a blue buff fight against Variety and Captain Twig. But now things are a little awkward for Lasbra. You're going to reach level 5 here pretty shortly. You're not going to have your own set of beads for over 2 minutes. And on this Erlang Shen, that might slow you down a bit in your attempted ganks early on in the game.
Especially even against a character like Hera, who normally you would want to be spam ganking as Erlang Shen, you know, pin. She doesn't have any recourse to that, no CC immunity for her, so if you pin her, she's going to take damage, and usually a good chunk of it coming from your mage, which certainly fits the bill for the Morgan Le Fay. But now, if you pin her and then try and 72 transformations and she just polymorph Arguses you, you're kind of dead at that point without your beads. So I think this does matter a good amount for Lasbra. Should free up the next blue buff for Variety. Don't think that you should see a successful invade guaranteed with his beads being down, and it should relieve some potential pressure on big man Tings.
And how about this, Hera, for BMT? There have been a select few in the league that have tried this pick. Actually, not too unlike how we see Horus, right? It's like Jake and Wrong-You, and then it's been like Dardes and big man Tings now maybe on this Hera pick. Had some value for Dardes, right, when he picked that up, and not to go too deep in that analysis, but it was a really good look for him. It was kind of Dardes of old that we saw for a little bit there. Still has its control, has the ability to self-peel despite being somewhat immobile. Do you think it has a place here in this draft, or is it under threat by what the Bolts are bringing?
Yeah, Hera is one of those gods that feels really good when she gets ahead and really bad when she gets behind, and that obviously is kind of a non-statement. That's true for every god in the game, but I think it's that feeling is more intense on Hera than a lot of other gods because of her lack of CC immunity and true mobility. But like I said, I think that when I think of Hera, I think of her being able to kill tanks pretty well because of her polymorph and the fact that that's a non-DR'd CC. If no matter how many times they've been stunned or knocked up or rooted in order to set up for you, they are going to be polymorphed for the same duration no matter what, and they're taking increased damage during that time. So they're silenced for a long time, and they take more damage. And when you allow your jungler or your ADC to consistently hit someone who is taking more damage like that, they start to kill them really easily. So she's not this solo carry sort of do it all by herself type of god, not just counting the Horus interaction as not just by herself. But I really think of her as a very supportive team fight mage for your hunter, and I think it fits the bill well for what the Kings like to do in their team fights and what picks Netroid likes to go for.
And we've wondered, kind of on the flip side of that, we talked about Hera and how she might be under threat from Lasbra early on in this game. You get maybe the mindset that genetics feels like Lasbra is going to be a pretty big threat, and then you're going up against Horus, who brings some of that damage there as well. So Sovereignty maybe is the obvious choice to start off here for genetics. Remember last game, still the Caprio's Thebes, Sovereignty, Heart Ward, so just auras all around. And rushing the Sovereignty, given what you're going up against early on in this game, makes some sense for genetics. We'll see if the Sovereignty can get some value here. Not stolen away by Lasbra, but no fight on the other end.
And this is the type of pacing that the Kings prefer. You know, the Bolts are good in these longer games. They've shown their capability in late-game team fights. So I'm not concerned if I'm a Bolts fan necessarily, but if I'm a Kings fan, I'm pretty ecstatic, especially in comparison to how Game 1 started with the Bolts. You know, 3 minutes from now, they were up 2,500 gold. This is similar, though, so to be fair, it's not like saying the Bolts can't do that exact same sort of style, but these slower-paced early games, when you've got a Guardian in solo, he's only lost 1 blue buff the entire game, it's much better. And I'm not surprised that the Bolts are going with this type of pace, considering how last game went. I think if I'm Lasbra, I'm saying, hey guys, you know, that's on me. I kind of didn't do it. I wasn't able to keep pace and farm. I'm going to need to do more with farming this game.
Whirlwind of Rage and Steel gets used early. That means Variety under a bit of pressure here. Luckily, Haddock's able to get that kill. The taunt from Lasbra just a bit wide, but that's okay because Haddock's had the knockback there. And then first blood over to the Olympus Bolts. Hey, it's similar, isn't it? Haddock's got first blood in Game 1. Now Haddock's got first blood here in Game number 2. And so the Olympus Bolts happy to finally get something going, and they've quietly aggro built up about a 1,000 gold lead.
Good start. Now that they get first blood, they set the Xing Chen a little bit further behind, but you know, it's not necessarily a dominant lane immediately for Haddock's over here now that he's gotten 1 gank. But the most important thing I'm seeing coming out of that play, Dave, is that Lasbra's level 9 and Twig is level 7. That is the best feeling, I'd say, for the Bolts, even more so than getting first blood bounty or, you know, killing this Guardian or whatever. Making sure the Lasbra is able to stay pace and stay close.
Awesome Jake stuns Big Man Ting's Polymorph catches onto the Horus, but that's about it. Now Genetics will have to use the Scarab's Blessing on himself. That seems to be enough now for the Olympus Bolts. Big ultimate to be down here. If you want to have a return fight somewhere on the map, Genetics is going to have to get that res done the old-fashioned way, and that's with some peel on your backliners.
That fight goes so well, though, for the Bolts. I mean, not only do you get the Scarab's Blessing, and you also get the beads from Big Man Ting at the exact same time. So you get 2 really big defensive things, and you don't overcommit. You know, it's just an ultimate from Veneno and a blink from Awesome Jake. You can make plays without those tools in order to get killed. Morgan Le Fay is not a heavily ult-dependent character. I think that she does enough without it to be threatening in lane. You don't need the blink necessarily for Jake. You know, against a character like Hera, you can 3 to your minion wave or 3 to your ally, and then instantly 2 on top of her there. You know, you've got options in order to play around this lack of CC immunity, and now just pin from Lasbra is potential lethal up against this Hera. So I love that play from the Bolts. They don't overplay their hand, they don't overcommit, and it opens up something like this.
That's right. Smart from the Olympus Bolts. Let's take advantage of a small advantage that might become bigger if the Gold Fury gets taken down. Genetics eats a knock-up alongside Captain Twig, who has to leap over the wall back to the red buff. Still no ultimate for Genetics, and that means Haddox picks up the first kill of the fight. Awesome Jake looking for the chase, but there's nothing to be found, and the Olympus Bolts find 1 and turn back towards the Gold Fury.
Ooh, nice ultimate from Haddox. Gave himself CC immunity. Now it's Twig who's in trouble because of the dive from Jake.
That is so much damage onto Twig, but Netroid's got the snipes, and Barra goes down. Variety alone in the back line now, and the Olympus Bolts suddenly in full retreat here as the Camelot Kings with Netroid and BMT turn the tables. And they pick up 2 kills.
And you see the value of having something long-ranged like this ROM. I mean, what other type of character can impact the fight in that way? You know, your frontliner is getting dove, Captain Twig's in some trouble from a really nice play from Haddox and Jake, but Lasbra, Ven, and Barra just take too much damage from the Gold Fury, and that's one of the weaknesses of this build for Hunters. They don't have something like the Devo gloves early like they used to in order to get even a little bit of sustain off the Gold Fury. Netroid makes the great snipes happen, and then the dive comes in after that. Well played from the Kings.
Can Haddox steal this one away? No, he can't. Won't even really give an attempt there. The Camelot Kings kept up the DPS, and Haddox didn't give it a chance. And so now the Camelot Kings, not unlike Game 1, kind of turn things around after a big fight goes their way. So now you have to take stock of where levels and things like that have changed. Big Man Tings, again, 2 levels up. That level gap in the jungle has closed. Now Netroid has a level lead as well. Shades of Game 1.
Very much
like
so.
Here over in Game 2.
Very much so. And like I said, Hera is one of those characters that when she falls behind, it feels extra bad. But when you get ahead, it feels really good. And you're looking at a character like the Morgan Le Fay, who very good at getting gods off of her. She doesn't do well at getting Argus off of her, I can tell you that much. Argus is CC immune the entire time. Dragonflight does nothing against Argus. Wildfire's movement speed, if Big Man Ting just uses the Shroud at the same time in order to give Argus movement speed, Venenu can't get away from it. You can't out DPS it necessarily, so if you're in a position now, if I'm Big Man Tings, and I see a wave which is rare at this point in the game to have a wave where it's 1v1, I think I just pop my 3 and run at Venenu and drop Argus on his head.
Yep.
Because what is he going to do in order to get away from it? I don't think there are a whole lot of options. So if I'm Big Man, I'm looking to play aggressive.
Doubly so if you have some support there from the rest of the Camelot Kings. Important, though, that Twig be mindful of the slight level gap that has continued there between himself and Lasbra. And so that's a good news for the Olympus Bolts, isn't it? While there's so much bad news going around, it's that Lasbra, he fell very far behind. There was so much of a conversation in Game 1 about Big Man Tings being a few levels up over Ven, and that's where a lot of that lead came from, and the Kings capitalized on it. By the time the late game rolled around, Lasbra was 4 levels down and was effectively able to do nothing on that Gilgamesh. So at least in the jungle, a playmaking jungler like Erlang Shen has a bit of a lead, and there's still a bit of a lead in the solo lane. So the Bolts have some characters they can fight around.
It's not as dire as it got to last game quite yet, that's for sure. And you're right to point out that Lasbra is the main reason why. And you're not relying on Lasbra as the primary initiator as hard as you were last game,
right?
If you're the Bolts, because now you've got a Horus, now you've got a Cucullin. Those are a little bit better at starting fights off for you than what you saw last time.
Awesome Jake abducted back, but tanky enough. And though not all that much committed from the Camelot Kings, that Jake will be able to be just fine here. So over here in the duo lane, things had been quiet, and luckily for Netruid, thanks to some of that range, was able to pick up a kill, and assist in that fight there as well. So this Rom feeling okay, and that's a duo lane that we're starting to get a little bit more used to as well. Artemis, of course. And you and I kind of passively thanked the Bolts for locking in Artemis. We were nervous that it wasn't going to end up getting picked in those top 2. But Rom has been a pretty popular answer to that a little bit later on in the draft.
And so that surprises some people because it is a counter matchup for the Rom in lane. Artemis is a very good matchup into Rom in lane because if you can force his ultimate defensively, you walk underneath him, place a trap, he dies or has to use beats. There's not a whole lot of options. But the thing about Rom in team fights versus Artemis is that Artemis is so good in team fights because in order to be in range to damage her, you are automatically in range to get bored. And if you get bored, it's hard to win the team fight from there. It's a guaranteed stun, it's a good amount of damage, it kind of does it all for you. Rom does not have to be in bore range in order to put threat on the Artemis. And I think that we saw it right there. I mean, Netruid is able to snipe Barra from so far away. Barra had already used the ultimate. But even if he had it, it wouldn't have mattered at all. And so I really like Rom against Artemis in that sense, even if it's tough for him in lane. But Netruid's already gotten past the hardest part.
What happens here? Watch out. Jake has got his ultimate rolling. Find the little Horus icon there. Instead, it's just over to the Pyromancer. Wondered if we'd see a commit on a Captain Twig. The answer is no. But Haddix, a big boon to the Olympus Bolts cause here at this point. We talked a lot about Lasbra and the differences between Game 1 and Game 2. Haddix on this Cucullin now with 2 kills in his back pocket. He's got the Pestilence there as well. And so his need to find that back line and find that damage, maybe at an all-time high given the way things are going here at this point. He's got the Blink, so has an easier time of setting up, but then so does Lasbra, so does Awesome Jake. So that sudden initiation factor alongside something like the To the Skies with the ultimate, something the Camelot Kings have to be wary of. And Abduct again finds itself onto Jake, but yet again, not that much committed on the other side.
And this time, Jake has mobility in order to get out of those sorts of situations. But in the late game, that's probably a death for Jake. If you get hit by a full duration Abduct, no one interrupts it, and then into a Polymorph, it's going to be Argus and you're dead, because Netruid would be there in order to actually shred through you. Without Netruid there, probably not enough damage in order to kill Jake, even with the Argus drop. Just get some effective poke and continue to establish some dominance, if you will, for the Kings. And, we kind of use that phrase jokingly a lot of the time, but I think in situations just like that, it actually does do something for you to make Jake think twice about walking into the jungle, because this lets you maybe get an extra second or a second and a half whenever you're pulling Pyromancer or pulling Fire Giant. If you have complete ward domination and you spend all game sitting around corners jumping Jake for walking in, where he doesn't have wards, he might be a little bit more trepidatious in stepping his foot in the jungle, and that could buy you some time to secure the
As hard as that is to imagine,
yes.
It could happen for Jake. Pyromancer pulled by the bolts here. Camelot Kings considering an Oni Fury. You have to imagine then, Aggro, or maybe it's not difficult to imagine, that this next Oni Fury, massive as far as the next 5 or so minutes of this game go, because that's where the Camelot Kings found a lot of their early advantage.
It could be, but I think that Oni Fury fights like this are oftentimes where teams will lose games. Like, if you're the Bolts here, what's worst case scenario if they pull this? That they then use the pressure on duo side to go to fire? I think I'm down to take a firefight at this point if I'm the Bolts, if the Kings are starting it for me. So if I'm the Bolts, I'll poke my head in. I'll make sure they don't get this for free, but I don't want to take a fight that loses us the game.
So maybe if there's a fight, it could be impactful. Haddox,
there's a fight.
Excuse me, founds the back line. It's a big knockup from the Kuko, and Argus has found the grouping of the Olympus Bolts roster. Snipes from Netrioid tickle a little bit of damage into the Olympus Bolts, but they're able to back away just fine. 3 ultimates down for the Camelot Kings, 3 ultimates down for the Bolts.
Lasbra pretty low, so he's going to try and reset and gets it off in time. But Variety knows about it. I think he placed that ward in time,
Wow.
so they know that there's only 4 people here on the Oni Fury.
Oni Fury pulled now by the Olympus Bolts and abduct onto Awesome Jake. Hey, he's dead this time around. Big Man Tinks and Netrioid, they've got the damage. It's been reset, but hasn't really. The Camelot Kings take down the Oni Fury, and Barracuda's not able to get the kill with the rest of the Olympus Bolts onto Variety. Bit of a fumble there from the Olympus Bolts. They start up the Oni, they reset it. The Camelot Kings were able to pick it right back up.
I think Jake just needs to have a lot more respect for this Camelot King CC chain and how long it's. I mean, he's standing there as Horus. As Ares, I get it. You get rooted, you're dead. You know, not a whole lot you can do unless you chain the abduct coming in. That's really your only recourse. You've got a dash as Horus, and it's not the fastest startup in the world, but if you, on reaction to the root, dash away, you live at 10 out of 10 times. And I can't imagine Jake's fracture was down. So that's just a lack of respect coming from Jake. And that continues to be part of the game plan here for the Kings is punish Jake for being greedy on not using buttons whenever we use buttons on him. and it's working for the Kings because that bought them an Oni Fury that was well earned at that point. But they get it for just killing Jake on the back end.
We've reached bad news time though now, and that's Lasbra's XP gap is closed, Haddox's XP gap is closed. The gap in the mid lane has not closed, so Big Man Ting's still a couple levels over Venenu. Genetics, Netrioid both have a level there as well. So where there were advantages for the Bolts, those leads have now closed. This feels like a game where the Camelot Kings are kind of able to walk where they want, find abducts where they want, and then follow up with some damage. It's Variety that could get things started here. Attempted root onto Venenu, who will use the ultimate. And Awesome Jake will use his as well. And that's just Variety walking around the back.
Variety simply moseyed on through the tier 1, got 2 ultimates, and walked out and didn't really take any damage for it. So that's
value.
That is value for sure. You want to talk about buy one, get one free. I don't think Variety didn't even buy one.
He didn't buy one.
He got 2 free.
Yeah, I'll take that deal every day of the week. Could be a free one, though, for the Olympus Bolts, and it is, and it's Barracuda who picks up the kill. Watch out in the rest of the fight, though, because Genetics has abducted Haddox, and Netrioid rolls aggressively in the back to find the kill. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel puts Awesome Jake in a bit of a tough spot. Now the rest of the Camelot Kings trying to chase him down, but a blink might get him out to safety. He turns back just briefly. Now is the knockup onto Genetics, and Argus still swinging away. Lasbra might reinitiate, but he chooses otherwise.
Oh, big blink in from Variety. Double knockup, double polymorph. Barracuda nowhere to go. Beautiful play coming out of the King Soul Layer just when the Bolts thought they'd gotten away.
I thought they had gotten away as well, and now the Camelot Kings have eyes on this tier 2. Bolts down 2 members, Captain Twig up in 5 for the Camelot Kings. And the tier 2 likely falls. Jake tried to back there. Luckily this time won't be punished for it. And so big fusion of gold over to the Camelot Kings. Not only does the kill numbers go for them, they get a couple towers as well. That all starts with Variety just walking around the back, and that's where that ultimate advantage began in the team fight.
Yep, Variety, for my money, has been the MVP of the set so far. I mean, the Hell play game 1, the Xing Chen play in game 2 has been super valuable here for the Kings. The big difference here for the Bolts, I haven't seen a big Caledonian Boar through a team fight yet. I feel like Barra is getting that forced from Variety solo dives, and if Variety gets Artemis ult for every single one of his Blink ults, that is a massive win for the Kings. And if I'm Ven or someone else on the Bolts, I think I'm telling Barra, yo, just use your beads. Normally that's the opposite. You know, you want to use your shorter cooldown first. Use the beads and save the ultimate for when they all in commit, because we need that chain stun in order to win these fights.
Olympus Bolts might have an opportunity to win a fight around the Fire Giant. It's the Camelot Kings that started it up just a moment ago. Active down. It's Vananu without his beads. Look out, Lasbra dealing damage to Captain Twig. There's the pin on the backside as well, and that's forced the ultimate out of both junglers. But watch out, Awesome Jake on the reinitiation, but he's alone. Nobody took it with him, and Netrioid picks up the kill.
I think it's right that they didn't take it with him, because he went straight into the teeth, and now Vananu trying to lifesteal through all the damage coming from the Kings. And he dodges out that last snipe, still juking Variety.
Watch out though, Netrioid taken low. He's got the Scarab's blessing on himself, and the Bolt's not able to clean up the kill. Vananu and Jake are gone. Nobody from the Camelot Kings is dead. Netrioid's had to leave, so a TKO onto one. But the chase begins, and Big Man Ting's leading the charge. Argus is the one right up front there. Caledonian Boar out from Barracuda. It's bot, 3 big stuns, and now the Olympus Bolts can maybe turn it around, but there's not enough damage. There's an abduct from Genetics, the kill from Variety, and the Camelot Kings running away with this game.
Argus is doing more than most of the Bolts of these fights, man. He's still going and is going to get the killing blow for Big Man Tings onto Haddix. That whole fight, Argus is just chasing Barra and putting damage into him, and he just has too many people coming around him in order to find time to knock out the PvE member of the Camelot Kings. Just the team fighting prowess of these Kings really coming in, and you're seeing the Bolts just get a little bit too split up in these fights. I mean, Jake goes in all by himself, directly on top of Variety, who goes, sure, what are you going to do? I'm just going to preemptively use my Xing Chen ultimate. And the Bolts were right to not take that ultimate. It was just not a good ultimate there at all for Jake, who continues to struggle in this city.
Can Jake make magic happen and steal away the FG? No, he cannot. And the Camelot Kings, without much sweat, are actually able to get that one. Actually, it could be worse here. Awesome Jake lucky not to get stunned against the wall, but I don't think it's going to matter. They get an FG and a pick onto Jake. Luckily, his death timer at level 13 low enough that it'll be up in 35 seconds. But that's 35 seconds
matters.
of free push.
That matters. Yeah, that's not a free, you know, sometimes it's fine to throw your support's life away in order to try your hand the 1% steal, but that one matters because the Kings, I know they just won that fight heavily and they got fire and all that stuff, but they haven't reset. You know, that's not a Phoenix that the Bolts should be losing. If they're 5v5, the Bolts are in a fine position to contest that because the Kings are still relicless coming out of that fight for Big Man. They still haven't back to buy. You're not, that's the weakest the Kings will be for the rest of this game, is on that mid-Phoenix siege. And if I'm the Bolts, I wanted to be there, in force, 5v5, in order to try and defend that. And whether that was someone else's call that, hey, Jake, just go and, you know, go try and steal it, it doesn't matter, we're not going to defend this initial Phoenix anyways, or that was his decision, I don't like the call from the Bolts. Now every fight from here just gets harder, not easier.
We thought this one would be a slugfest, and admittedly, Aggro, it's kind of been anything but. As the Camelot Kings have taken over back-to-back games here, the Olympus Bolts, they've got a Titan standing, so this game and this set not over. But in order to attempt to rewrite history, you've got to turn this game around and then win a Game 3 against a white-hot Camelot Kings team, who all 5 members are playing out of their minds at the moment. I agree with you earlier on. I think Variety has been MVP of this set here so far, alongside great play from really everyone else. You can open up the space, but if nobody's going to be there to deal the damage and make plays as well, tends to not go in your favor. So now the Olympus Bolts, you kind of have to defend one of these Phoenixes, right? I mean, you didn't do it when it was even. You got to hope that these level and gold differentials are low enough that you stand a chance.
And whenever everyone's condensed, things like Caledonian Boar get a lot better. And Barra, I mean, you saw how good his ultimate was at the end of that Fire Giant fight, and that was without any extra damage coming through. If he's able to do that in the midst of a 5-on-5, I think you like the Bolts' chances a lot more than you have up until this point, but now the Kings are much stronger.
Draugr buff is there, so 1 thumbs up from the Olympus Bolts, maybe half a thumbs up. It's only going to buy just a second or two. So the Camelot Kings, they have the ability to buy their time here. All 10 actives up for both teams. All 5 ultimates up for both teams here as well. So you're going to have a full strength fight. So now the Olympus Bolts want to win here. Haddix working his way into the back. He's found what would have been a knockup, but Netrioid uses his beads. Genetics does as well, and a shell got used. But Haddix used his beads in a blink on the other side. Maybe you're feeling okay if you're the Olympus Bolts, the best you could hope for.
Not too bad. Nice stun on a Twig.
Captain Twig has to leap away, and Netrioid has melted Awesome Jake, and the snipes connect onto Barracuda as well. The clock seems to be striking midnight here for the Olympus Bolts. The left side Phoenix gone, Barracuda gone as well. I'm not sure history's going to be rewritten today. The Camelot Kings make their way onto the Titan. Venenu is still around as well, but look at the damage. The Olympus Bolts' hopes are crumbling, and the Camelot Kings take it in 2.
Wow, and not even close either, Dave. I mean, they came in and they dominated. You saw, I don't know if you saw Big Man Tings' tweet earlier today when you wake up and realize that Epsilon's regular season record is on the line, that you are the gatekeepers for that. And he was sweating about it, but I don't think he needed to be because he played great. The rest of the Kings played great. And look, this is the natural progression of teams that are setting metas and being really good, is that you're going to go in with your strategies, you're going to do your thing, and enemy teams are incentivized to play their best. They want to beat the best of the best, and they know what you've been doing because you're going to do the same things that have made you successful up until this point. So I'm sure it's disappointing for the Bolts that they lose today. I'm sure they wanted that record, but I think that this is just going to show that this league is very close despite the good record for the Bolts. And the Kings came in with a very cohesive game plan, really attacked Awesome Jake and his God Pool in particular. Jake had his worst set in a long time.
I think so.
And that happens, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world if you're a Bolts fan.
I think better to lose now than way down the road if you're the Olympus Bolts.
Bingo.
And some MFT, some mandatory fun time might be necessary.
Oh no, this loss meant a lot more than I guess. Oh no, I didn't realize it was that serious.
It is that serious. MFT on the menu for the Olympus Bolts. Camelot Kings, they end the undefeated streak of the Olympus Bolts in 2 convincing games. We're going to head to a break, and then the desk will tell us how we got there.
Camelot Kings stepped up their game and were able to deliver a swift blow to the scoreline there for the Olympus Bolts. But you too can also step up your game by going over to smitegame.com/Alienware using Smite code AW to get yourself some sick discounts on some Alienware merch. We've got the Aurora Ryzen 10 desktop. We've got the 25-inch gaming monitor at 240 hertz. You can go over there and check all that out. You can even check out Alienware on their social media platforms on Twitter and Instagram at Alienware, or you can go to alienwarearena.com and check out all the cool giveaways and join their ever-growing global community onto that one. But enough about Alienware. Gore, the Bolts lost. They've finally been defeated. And also to note on that one, Bisky finally lost her first bet on Twitter. Blazybard actually managed to get that one, so congrats to him. But even bigger congrats are in order here for the Kings, able to take them down.
Yeah, I mean, monumental. And Agra had said it, but not a very close 2 games either. I mean, like, competitive for the first few minutes, but once the Kings took off in Game 1, once they took off in Game 2, there was not as much fight back from the Bolts as you would have expected. There were a lot of good moments in the first game where you got to see some sick saves, but in this game, it was all about the counter-engage, I guess, realistically. Not only did you have some amazing saves from the Khepri, from Genetics, but you got Netroid with so much turnaround damage. There was a point where the Bolts were trying to retreat, thought maybe they were out of their Variety had an absolutely sick re-engage like right here, and those were those moments where it's just so difficult to figure out how to crack the shell that was the Kings. Every time you tried to dive in on somebody, well, they just got saved by Genetics. Anytime that you tried to get away from the fight, well, you just got pulled right back in by Variety, and you got to see Tings on a classic Hera pick do immense amounts of damage, Netroid with some beautiful snipes from the top ground. It just all lined up to be a King's day.
And every time you thought you had the damage to take them out, well, there was Big Man Tings to answer in kind with that Hera under his belt. 4-0 onto the mid laner for that one. 3-1 for Variety, and Netroid again finishing as an unkilled onto that. And that puts him up, what now, 6-1 on that, Ron?
Yeah, makes it not only something that is apparently damn near unbeatable, but it speaks wonders. So, yeah, the Bolts didn't get a ton of kills here, but you see, like, not only did both backliners for the Kings do more damage, they also didn't die. That is usually, like, that is the biggest symbol for troubles when you're in the middle of a team fight, is if the 2 carries are constantly getting out. It didn't matter how much pressure was on Big Man Tings, didn't matter how much pressure was on Netroid. They did not die throughout all of that because of good Khepri revives, but also good peel from the rest of the team and good setup. The way they played that was, I mean, just damn near perfect for what they were trying to accomplish, and they did it. They got the win.
Well, they got the win, and we've got Variety on standby to help us enjoy the moment of the Bolts finally being taken down under here. Variety, big win for you guys. Congratulations on the win for it. I got to ask the standard question. How does it feel finally taking down the Bolts?
It feels great because, honestly, if I had any idea what I was doing the first time we played in this split, after the no boots patch, we probably should have beat them then as well. So, yeah, it's good to get some revenge.
Well, it is good to get the revenge. Any celebration plans that you've finally been able to dethrone them?
Maybe. Who knows? Maybe some lemonade.
Just some classic lemonade onto. I can respect that offer onto. But you still got another match to go for. You got the Scarabs coming up as your next opponents. Now that you've gotten through with probably the biggest hurdle of your startup onto here, what are your preparations going against the Scarabs now with their new roster?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to it. I think they're going to progress a lot faster and a lot better than they would have before with layers on the team. So, yeah, I expect it to be... I don't know, I feel like today's set was pretty easy, so maybe it's... I hope it's just as easy on Sunday, so...
Well, congratulations, Variety, on the 2-0. Go enjoy some lemonade and you have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Man, he really had some confidence in that one. He said, man, today's set was easy. That's not words I think I would ever hear going up against a Bolts team.
He got me with the lemonade.
I saw you mute that mic, but that was a hearty chuckle coming from you onto that one.
How are you going to celebrate? I don't know. I have some lemonade. I don't know. It got me. It lost me. I mean, like you said, confidence is what's just kind of pouring out of the Kings there, and for good reason. Not only did they take down the Bolts, but I think the grand scheme right now is what we have to be looking at. Is the fact that they are your number 2 team. They have been this team that has really been fighting hard, both Phase 1 and this phase, to be up in the top, not just a consistently top 4 team, but consistently top 3. They've been consistently taking down your number 1 teams, and this is and was their one step closer. If the Bolts get this win, they pull ahead a far and few in between to be number 1. Even if it gets tied, it's head-to-head goes towards the Bolts. And so this is a great step for them, because now you can see only one game is actually separating them.
Yeah, instead of that 2+ game that could have gone ever extending here, the Camelot Kings are able to kind of tighten that gap up a little bit, finally put that first loss in the Bolts column. As you saw on the schedule, we do still have another match to go. The Solar Scarabs and the Tartarus Titans going to be going on to this one, and that's going to be it. What's up?
Like, hold it on this. You see the wins go 8-7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and then the Scarabs and the Valkyries have to mess it up and be tied for 1?
So what you're saying then now is if the Scarabs win today, it'll be a perfect line down because they're playing the Titans.
Right.
So if the Scarabs play this, then they can, and they win this, then they can make it 8 all the way down to 1 for first down to 8th seed. The nice little reverse onto there. We'll see if they can do that one, though, into the next game. We do have the Solar Scarabs and the Tartarus Titans coming up after this. We're going to cut it to a quick break here, and then we're going to be back with that set. So stick around. We'll be back very shortly.